It's 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Clerk, may I have a roll call and an establishment of a quorum?
Isaiah Crowe.
Here.
Mary Beth Shaw. Barb Sachs.
Mary Beth is
Oh, she's
Mary
on
Beth,
Zoom?
can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, are you here and present in your roll call?
Yeah.
Okay. Barb Sachs.
Here.
Mike Wagner.
Here.
Matt Crowe.
Here.
Dylan Hallenstein.
Here.
And I'm here as well.
All right, I approve the posting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Right, we do have one member of the public signed up to speak tonight. If you would. I know
Sure.
this is- I should have probably checked in with you before. So it's 2 minutes
Yes.
per policy that you'll have a chance to stand up and speak, and it may seem informal because it's not a time that we can deliberate or discuss back, so I always feel really bad because it's like done.
Don't worry.
I've
I've been here before, done that before.
I know, just explaining that. So we'll give you the floor for 2 minutes. Michael set a timer, and then if you would just introduce yourself, your name, and then the municipality in which you reside. That would be
Okay, got it.
for us.
Okay, hello, my name is Daniela Haas, and I live in Black Earth. I'm going to talk about 4K. I heard it was on the agenda or saw it, and so I'm just coming to give maybe a brief overview as a parent. So, hello, my name is Daniela Haas. I have 4 children in the district, and I want to speak shortly on the topic of 4K. A little information about my children. Corinne is in 5th grade and had half-day 4K. Blair is in 3rd grade and also had half-day 4K. Garland is in kindergarten and had full-day 4K. And Eloise is currently in childhood, early childhood. And all of my kids have an IEP. Three of the 4 of them are diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and 1 was born with a cleft lip and cleft palate. My kids have all very much benefited from the 4K program, regardless of whether it was full day or half day. I would argue that my older girls would have benefited from full day more than half day. Some of the information I've looked up says that full day 4K will benefit children in a variety of ways, including school readiness, social skills, access to needed resources like speech, OT, PT, and an introduction to special education classes, or well, not whatever, elective classes that aren't elective, like gym, music, arts, and library. Now, my kids are special cases. I would argue for days about how much Corinne could have used full day 4K at that age. She had not been diagnosed yet, and she was struggling with her social skills, meltdowns, being with peers her own age, as well as her speech. I feel that having her integrated into the classroom for a longer amount of time would have benefited her enormously at that age. Blair, who is my cleft kiddo, she really struggled with her speech. She basically didn't speak in public or in school until late kindergarten. She was very tentative and very quiet. She could have used more time in school to help improve those skills. Garland is very social, and I don't think the social aspect of school was a problem for him. But being in a classroom setting and learning how to regulate his emotions was a big thing for him. We unfortunately were not able to utilize full day 4K for him until the spring semester due to his autism therapy schedule. But as soon as he started full days in January, we saw some very remarkable improvements in his regulation skills and the ability to follow along with routines of the classroom. Eloise is going to be heading into 4K next year, and I'm confident she'll be fine whichever way, full day or half day. And luckily, my new schedule is very flexible enough and able to make that work. However, if it is decided to go back to half days, she will spend her time outside of school, unfortunately, watching TV and maybe napping while I work. So I'd much rather have her be in the school setting, learning, socializing, and being active. Her speech is also delayed, and she could use that time around other peers to hear and see, some of those sound demonstrations. I've spoken with a few other parents who will have kids in 4K next year, and they are all in agreement of what that would be. And they'd like to continue seeing it full day for educational and social reasons, as well as the ease of scheduling with their siblings. There is also a positive point of being able to identify kids like mine at an earlier age. and to have them in school for longer periods of time. Intervention at a young age is incredibly important. Therapy centers have very long wait lists, while kids could be getting help in school at that younger age. The younger identified kids, or the younger you identify kids like mine, the better. I understand that having full day 4K puts a bit of a strain on the school in terms of scheduling, and especially I know the special teachers, but it is a huge value to our kids, especially kids like mine who have some of those extra struggles. It gives them more time to be in an environment with other kids and trained staff who are there to help them and grow and succeed. I know my family is kind of the exception and not the rule, and we'll be fine either way. The school district has been amazing and helpful and adaptive to all of our needs, and I feel like the teachers and have my kids at the core of their reasoning and have gone above and beyond the call of duty. Heights is truly a special place to be, and our kids are very lucky to have the resources and help that the school has been able to offer us. And thank you for taking this decision and every decision into careful consideration. Did I make it?
Thank you. Not quite, because
Okay.
I thought there would be a buzzer, and then I was like, oh, you're just counting up. So,
I tried really hard.
I can tell you were reading fast.
And obviously, because that is a topic of discussion on the agenda tonight, we can't discuss it now, but maybe further when we get there in the agenda, people can make discussion of that. So thank you again for sharing with us. All right, moving on to minutes and payroll. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes of September 23rd, 2024?
So moved. Second.
Any questions on any of that listed? All right, hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right, do I have a motion to approve the payroll and accruals and disbursements listed?
So moved. Second.
And any questions on any of those items? Okay, hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan? Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right, into reports, I just have a couple of things I wanted to give updates on. It was brought, and some of these echo some of the things on your report, but you have a substantially longer list, so I figured I would take some of them. It was brought to our attention that there are certain areas on our elementary playground that aren't exactly accessible or easily accessible to our students in wheelchairs specifically, and so we've been looking at some bids and kind of walked around the area to see if there are certain, at least sections and points on the perimeter that off the concrete, we can do some flat surfacing to help those kiddos get to accessing the playground. Doing that to the entire playground is in excess of $400,000. So that's not in the cards right now, but we'd love to get a couple of those sections laid out for our kiddos to be able to utilize the swings, and for our staff members that are transferring them. So that will hopefully be moving onward and upward soon. In the last couple of weeks, we've had some meetings to attend. Michelle and I went to the Greater Dane County School District Governance Consortium, in which somebody joked our acronym is like GDCSDGC. Did anybody think about that when they named this group? Okay. But it's a really great group. Again, the superintendents and board presidents of the Dane County school districts, and really the whole basis is getting together, and we're so different, but we are aligned and have more things in common than we are different. And I think one of the things that has really culminated is the need to look at our state funding and our aid and the discrepancies, and it's a task in and of itself, because as Craig always said, there's winners and losers, and so when you start looking at the formula, and it's a really hard subject. So I think everybody was kind of in agreement to hone in on the special ed reimbursement and trying to get that percentage increased. And I know we're around 32%, Derek, is that ish, right? And so I'm hearing, one of the association groups is hoping to ask for 60, one is 90, and, you know, so there's some discrepancies between what to advocate for, but this group was pretty headstrong about if the legislature is making mandates about how we are to give you know, kids in public education and their education, if they're mandating that we need to fulfill specific needs, then it's morally and ethical right to make sure that we have the funding in place and don't have to transfer the funds. So I think there are a lot of ideas on whether we just rent a bus and take it to the Capitol and tell everybody that that's what we're looking for. Probably not going to happen, but you can just sense that I think the growing frustration and desperation of school districts with regard to the budgets and referendums is building, and we're trying to build some advocacy across all of these platforms and utilize it to greater good. They just mentioned that this coming November, there are 149 referendum questions on the ballot across Wisconsin, and really just reinforce this theme that referendums are universal, exhausting, and never-ending. And they showed a graph which I thought was very interesting that I'll just share. And so, essentially for the longest time, when the authority was within the hands of the district and they could keep up with inflation, you saw the gap between, you know, the per pupil aid and what inflation was coupling up nicely because the legislature met inflation. And then Act 10 happened, and the authority was taken out of the hands of the local school board, and the legislature said it's all ours, and then they didn't keep up with inflation. So on a per pupil basis, you may see in the headlines right now, the Supreme Court is looking at Governor Evers' 400-year veto, and so even at a $345 increase, that gets us nowhere near what we should be, $3,380 per pupil. So right now it's about 760-ish, maybe. And so even with Governor Evers, you know, 325, it's just striking to see. Not only have we not kept up, but we can't make up, and you know, 325 increase is still below the 4% CPI inflation this year. So it's helping, but it's not going to solve anything, and it's a really hard thing to market every time you go to referendum, because people think, now it's solved. Like another one, we passed it, it's solved, but it's out of control, and it's unfortunately gonna just be the nature that the burden falls on our taxpayers. So I thought that was interesting. We had the WASB regional meeting. Dylan, Michelle, and I went. Really fun just to network, and they always do some legal updates too. Talked a little bit about onboarding and acclimating our new school board members and what that looks like. And then they have a legislative workshop too to kind of go along with it. We also had our legal workshop with Shana from Lewis, Renning and Lacey, a law firm who specializes in primary focus in public education, and they're just tremendous to work with, and she's been a really great advocate, and she just sat down with us and kind of went through the roles and responsibilities of school board members, how we utilize policy, help in hindering our decision-making, our responsibilities, and ethics as board members. So just a lot of great stuff that I think is important as a reminder on an annual basis, but definitely for people who are new to the board too, because it's, you know, you're looking at a lot at state statutes, you're hearing a lot from lawyers that say, well, I do this way, we'll check with this lawyer's like, well, I don't know, you know, the lawyers conflict, the statutes maybe haven't been written, but they're, you know, so it's a whole host of issues, but I think it was just really great to sit down and talk with her. And so a lot of stuff happening, but to Dylan's point about the resolution that we've been talking about, I think there's a general consensus that people need to utilize their platforms and groups and associations to somehow figure out to prioritize school funding and try and advocate better for school funding. And that's what we're doing too, so kudos to that. Hey. All right, so I'll shush up now. And we will move on to our administrator reports. Who wants to? Yay!
Well, you can try going. You guys first last few times. Keep it going.
Right next to me,
Perfect.
so.
Alright. So I think I'm just gonna touch base on my celebrations and challenges, and then if you guys have any questions on anything else. Homecoming was a huge celebration for us. We really kind of incorporated our littles into getting into the spirit. We had door decoration contests and the object of the door decoration contest was that it was more student and kid made. And so from 4K doing painting on little footballs and their little pictures on little tricycles. It was a lot of fun, and the kids really got into it. And then we ended the week with a little mini pep rally, so that was a lot of fun, having the high schoolers come down and join us. And then Amy Green and Carrie Martinez, they stepped in when we were short teachers and short stub, and they actually put some things on pause, rescheduled some things so they could help cover for a second grade teacher when we were short stub. So I really wanted to highlight them and just thank them. And throughout the week too, there's been lots of other teachers that have been filling in holes as well. And then that kind of brings me to my challenge. One of my challenge is our subs. We've been kind of short on subs, and it's for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons might be because they only need 2 hours, where we pay subs having 4 hours. So then the sub will pick up a job because it's only 2 hours. Or the other reason is today I had 2 special education teachers out. Not very many subs want to pick up those roles. So then it was a lot of EAs or even myself, we were kind of covering those as well. Or the other challenge is that there aren't a lot of subs. And I know we reached out to a couple of them. One was subbing up in Sauk, the other one was in Wanakee subbing today. So they were kind of lots of different variables as to why we are short. And a lot of subs are also picky too. They only have a certain grade level or a certain age or even a certain teacher that they will work for. So that has also been a challenge this last month. And then unfortunately I had to send out some attendance letters for families who have been missed 5 or more days of school so far. But I really want to work with those families and see what we can do to help. So it's not a challenge, it can be a teamwork collaboration on getting those kiddos to school, because it's super important. Any other questions regarding anything else on my report?
What would you say is our list of substitutes, like, in the waiting room?
I feel like there's a lot.
Are there a
Courtney
lot?
and I were going through them this morning and we're like, oh, he's just middle school, high school. Oh, they're at Sauk today. So there was a lot. And I know another sub today that we were looking at, she's out of town because she's a retired teacher. So then she's on vacation for the next 3 weeks. So
Just wonder if there's maybe something we could do to organize some event for that
Yeah.
group to initiate them better with, because I get you want to go with what's comfortable, right?
Right.
If you know that third grade classroom, you're like, that's where I just want to walk in, and so maybe it's just a matter of,
we talked, so we talked too about, because their subs come in and they're like, well, I don't have a login, or where do I find all this stuff? So really streamlining, can we have just a general login for subs? And then have a Google Drive where teachers share everything so the subs can go in and it's all right there and hopefully be unified. So it has been,
Do we have an internal sub coverage? Like, what do we pay for internal sub coverage?
so we have so technically our long-term, or our district sub is Jessica Dempsey for our long-term sub position because we were unable to fill that. And then we have Emily Davis covering Jeannie's position for a long-term sub.
I'm talking about like the day-to-day, so can teachers sub on
That's-
their preps? So can like the high school teacher
For
come
the
down
high
and sub?
school, we do
Yeah,
that.
high
It's
school,
harder to do that.
well,
in
then can they
the-
come down if there's time to come and sub on their prep time too? I mean, and like, and what is the pay for that? Is it internal, like?
you're saying like, if a
Yeah,
high
'cause,
school
like, we
teacher
get,
has a prep
like,
time, could they come down to
We get
kindergarten?
we get $40 an hour where I am per class we cover for. Like, that's what it is. I'm not saying don't. But like those internal.
What's in policy, Mr. Policy
Yeah,
Chair?
I know. But again, it's like, it's just those internal, we
Yeah.
can talk later about it. We
I
can
think
talk
it's
later.
30.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's the thing, and those are things where it's just like
And I know-
logistics, everybody's got prep at the same time.
Yeah,
So it's like, it's not as easy just to come cover.
And when I did, so we did have to pull our sub that we had scheduled for music and teachers had to go cover, and so they would write down that pay. But then they're losing
No problem.
their only prep time over the day too. So trying to make sure I value their time, because
Absolutely.
I want to make sure they feel appreciated and valued.
And I would say the high school's running into the same situation. They have to pull their people to sub in the high school, so it's not as easy as, yeah.
Maybe we could do a substitute open house or something.
Or
Maybe.
you can offer, sorry, Barb, you can offer, like, they used it, if I remember at Sunbury, you can do a buyback for your hours. So if you sub, you just add that hour to your days off roll. So it'll just go back to you. Instead of getting paid for it, it'd just be an hour you get back and for your time off. So,
So for internal subs.
yeah, internal subs, you get time off instead.
Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry, Barb. I do it.
Oh,
How impactful to somebody's day is that for a teacher? Is it really impactful? Is that something that really gets in their way if they are taking somebody else's class over for that period of time?
Definitely if you are subbing for library or art, because their only break they get is a half hour or 40-minute lunch period. And maybe if they don't cover a recess, you get an extra 15 minutes. Otherwise, they're with you're with your entire class all day long, except for lunch. So when they go to related arts or specials, that's 50 minutes that they can get a little breather, go to the bathroom, quick grab a little treat from the lounge if there's treats in the lounge. But if they have to cover art or library, that's the full 15 minutes where they don't get any break except for their lunch. So it's a lot,
Yeah.
especially if you're with a whole bunch of 4K friends or kindergartners and
There's a different level of intensity.
or even fun fifth graders.
Different level of intensity.
Yes. Yeah, so it's,
Well, I think it's an important conversation clearly for us to keep having, like we're all talking about, so.
yeah, and we're only in October and I noticed that we're already helping a lot trying to cover. So thought I'd bring it up as a challenge.
definitely. Good to talk about.
Having like an open house,
Yes.
Yeah.
a substitute open house kind of thing.
Well, and even, we had to talk about with bus drivers too,
Yeah.
like, well, can you help people get their CDL? Do they even, so if you put some pathway in front of some community members saying, this is what it takes to be a sub, come on in, have the chat, see the school, and you never know.
Yeah.
Licenses,
Yeah, you never know who you might
after so many days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything
Thank
else
you.
regarding my report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was like walk in quickly and nonchalantly, hi. How's I should have recorded that on.
Oh, it's recorded.
Oh, good. Now you can always go back and watch this. Perfect, thanks.
This month, I just wanted to highlight all the AAC work that's being done because that's a tremendous way to continue building access for our students with disabilities to all sorts of areas of our school and community. So I think that's a huge success, as well as the fact that our seclusion restraint action plan got approved by DPI. We were already well into the groundwork of improving those practices, so not much will change besides very, very thorough paperwork, which can always be improved with those details. Other than that, a huge challenge in considering the continued demands that are placed on all staff members when you're thinking about working with students with disabilities are functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans. Because DPI has really expanded the guidance for that, where we're no longer just looking at certain students, like students with emotional behavior disorders. Any child whose behaviors impact their learning, including if it's anxiety and they're shut down, if they have trouble getting to school, along with some of those disruptive, aggressive behaviors, those kids need specific plans. And those specific plans take a lot of data, and the first suggestion from DPI is that you have to shift adult approaches. So we're not changing the student, we're changing how we're navigating that student's world. It's a really large undertaking for not only our student services teams, but our special education teachers, and often very much those general education teachers as well, who are taking all of that data and trying to implement the plans for their 4 different IEPs that all struggle with a different behavior. So that's definitely a big challenge we talked about at our department meeting, and it's a slow growth that we will do with a lot of support for all of our stakeholders as we move forward. Any questions?
Do you need any resources, do you need help, do you need training for that? Do you need like stuff from the board, like, whatever Michelle is? But I mean, like, yeah, 'cause it's not easy. I mean, that is a very, 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 very difficult thing to do because you're basically adding almost another entire IEP on top of it. So, because of the behaviors you have to address, so, good luck.
Yeah. We'll
Thank
use
you.
our department.
She didn't even respond if there was anything.
I feel like we're supposed to talk about it.
No, we're going to use our department time for some of that continued professional development with a lot of our DBI resources. They have a very large toolkit that gives you some good guidance.
Lots of thoughts, no idea how to verbalize them.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it's just taking the initiative, wrapping up. All right, so, well, thank you. The high school, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Sarah a little bit with that homecoming piece. Having a K-12 campus gives us so many more opportunities to bring a community together. And it was so fun to watch our students be involved in our building, but then go over to our elementary building and do things, and just watching the younger students look up to the older students, and then the older students go back down memory lane about all the things they did when they were little. It was really cool. And so I really, really feel like that is a celebration and something super exciting that we are doing here. And look forward to more coming, as we go through the school year. One of the other pieces that I think is another big, basically a big celebration is we did have all of our students get through their pre-ACTs, 8, 9, 10, iReady, and then our juniors will be taking their ACT in next week, which is super exciting. I don't know how excited they are, but we are, because the data we are already receiving back looks really, really great, which means our teachers are really wrapping their arms around our kids from K-12, because there's no way we can do this just in 1 year. This has been a whole progress throughout. So that has been really great to see. The other half that on October 22nd, we get to have the students take their tests, and rather than going right back into the classroom, we honestly, Mr. Schmidt has helped us develop basically a field trip over to UW-Madison for our students to get a tour and to be able to ask questions from their counselors on what they need as they're applying and things like that to other schools. Not just Madison, but that's going to be our center point because it's close. So super cool for our kids. One of the challenges that is out there right now is we have, I want to continue to really push our teachers to really utilize some outside experiences and field trips. I have some groups really using it a lot and going outside and seeing different things, but I want to be able to help our students, help our teachers really see where they can take their classes and see how a field trip over here could really bring some experiences into the classroom for our students. So trying to figure that out and working with a couple teachers to kind of help me kind of feel where that can go. We're really gracious because we have the opportunity to do it. That's what our students would like. And hearing from the ones that have already happened so far this year has been really cool. And so that's a challenge that I need to do it more and get them out there.
I feel like giving that a round of applause.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something for years we've been like, do we put that in policy, like mandating that, kids have, because that's always been, I think, a big priority is like utilizing, for some of these kids, the opportunities off campus might be the only time that, they have the opportunity to see other things around us. And there's a lot of access within a short geographical distance to things, so kudos, yes, really exciting.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. It's really our teachers doing it. It's not me. They're coming up with the ideas, thinking way outside the box.
To have a leader that supports it is a big deal.
Okay, well, that's good. That's excellent. All right. Any questions?
Can I do a shout out?
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying to the sport events I've gotten to go to, watching how you all work with the kids while they're in the cheer section. I think that you're making sure they have fun in a respectful way. But I was at a football game 2 weeks ago now, and it was right before my 10:30 soccer game we were at. And just watching Tom and Liz, who were there at the time, make sure that the students are cheering and having fun, also just like an inclusive way for all the students that are there, I think is so impactful for those students to learn how to lead in that way. And so just to shout that out, because I think that is an important part of the education here, and it's just really gratifying to see it happen.
Two of you almost camouflage as seniors there. Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate it. We have fun. I know that we do look forward to it and being there and being at the different events, because it is fun to see our students in a different light, but then also get to work with students that maybe aren't participating physically in it, but enjoying and cheering and supporting our students. It really is something that means a lot. So, thank you. Yep. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thanks, Liz. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'll put that back to Dan. You got it.
Well, hi, everyone. I'll piggyback off Liz. Just, yeah, a lot of data coming in, and I feel like I'm sending stuff to the principals, often, so it's always, they're gonna love this spreadsheet. Send it off. But, on the board report, just talked a little bit about 4 exam scores. I know Michelle kicked out the State Journal article, so we were mentioned. I think you talked specifically about English language arts. We're right there in math as well. So we're top 3 in math in Dane County, and it's always just a good check to see where we're at. So we held steady there the last 2 or 3 years. Also included just the new language when you see those articles, just it's no longer proficient in advance, it's meeting in advance. Doesn't impact us a great deal on how we do business. They changed the benchmarks a little bit, slid the line back a little bit, but it's just business as usual for us. So our numbers look good across the board. And the Ford exam, just, it's 1 point of data for us. We take the iReady test, and I just want to talk a little bit about that and the difference between the two. The iReady test we take 3 times a year, and the purpose of that is to really try to inform our teachers' instruction. And it gives us data points throughout the year, how are our students progressing, and it really helps us understand where the kids are at, and so how they perform on the Ford exam. That iReady data can give us a little information, a little bit of predictor of how they're going to perform on those exams. It's not an exact science, but it does help us guide our instruction and help group our kids who need interventions or maybe need a boost in support here or there. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'll finish with my report. Just got a lot going on. We are onboarding a new program. It's really a data warehouse. Next Path Education. We're really excited about it. We're just getting it set up. Our data is starting to get in there. We got a lot of our data has been uploaded in that, but it's really going to help streamline and make us more efficient as a district. I don't know if any of you remember, we used to have EduClimber as a district. Loved it, but we didn't use it district-wide. It was really an element. We used it mainly at the elementary level. This program will be K-12. I know the other administrators are excited about it because we spend a lot of time sorting data with our own spreadsheets, so we spend a lot of time just sitting and cutting and pasting or typing in data, and we don't need to do that. And so this program is going to help us. So, and it should help our reports too. We can track our kids a little bit better and just be more efficient, and it'll be better data. So excited about that. That's a work in progress. I kind of consider this a pilot year, so we'll work out all the bugs this year. We got a lot of training to do, just how it's going to work, but excited about that. And then also I'll just academic and career planning. We're working with Scott Carr from CESA 2, and I met Scott 2 years ago. I was originally in my role as director of curriculum, trying to incorporate academic and career planning at that time. Timing wasn't right for us, so it was kind of put on hold, obviously, last school year. And I think he was a little surprised when I reached back out to him. Because, well, hey, Scott, I'm back. And, when I originally reached out to him, he worked for CESA 7. But I was trying to get a trainer or somebody here And his name kept coming up. He is one of the gurus, so to speak, on career readiness in the state. He visited us in person, our leadership team, last week. We've had multiple Zooms with him. He's meeting with our academic career planning committee next week, and then he's going to present to the 612 staff on October 24th. So it's work in progress, and really it's a 3-year commitment, so we'll go slow, but I think you'll see some progress made in that area, and I know that's one of our goals that we want to accomplish. Questions for me?
What's it look like when he comes in and talks? Like, what does he talk about?
Well, our goals with him, introduce the new standards, the new career readiness standards will be part of that. He used to be really did a lot of work on redefining ready. That's kind of gone to the wayside a little bit. So for us, our initial work is he's going to help us create a portrait of our graduate. And what does that look like? And then also some of our pathways that we have. But I think initially, I think that's where we've targeted early on is a supportive. Anything to add there, Liz? Does that make sense?
Nope, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he was great, and also helping us understanding how to merge this in the classroom with our teachers, because it is, you're taking your career planning and your academic pieces and merging them and showing how by using both of these, or combining both of these, the success of our students goes even higher.
Because that academic piece has to stay solid. We talked specifically about that. So he's going to help us engage our teachers in that process. So we're excited.
I'm excited about next half, because I think anytime anything is in one warehouse,
Yep.
right, simplifies everything, and especially when we try to make data-based decisions, it's like, that's your place to go, and it makes your lives easier too, so that's exciting.
Very good.
Yeah.
Like no one else ready.
You set the bar too high, nobody's touching that.
Get a paper bag, I'm really.
This was a do-it-yourself project.
Oh, boy.
All right. So, we'll start with athletics. Great, end of our fall seasons. They're wrapping up now. We're getting into tournament series. And really looking at the co-curricular handbook, which you all probably know as the sports code of conduct. It's the same thing, but it's more inclusive in that it includes all of our co-curriculars, because being involved in school doesn't magically make you get better grades. It's that accountability piece and that checking in with our advisors. So really bringing that full circle. It hasn't consistently been applied in the past, and we're working on that consistency piece. And part of that is making that co-curricular handbook more consistent throughout. So I've looked at it. I've had some staff members look at it. I'm picking out a few students right now to look at it, and a few family members. So we're going to get all of those pieces put together, getting it in their hands, and they're marking it up, and they're asking great questions, and we're sitting down and talking about specific pieces in there, and then hopefully have that worked through and ready to go, so that it will match up with the student handbook and be consistent with those standards, and consistent with itself, quite honestly, and consistency between sports and other co-curriculars, so that when you're involved in our school, you're involved in our school, and those hold the same amount of accountability, but also that we think all of those are awesome in the same ways. And so just working on that together. So that's where we're at there. This is to celebrate the green team. I have reduced, reused, and recycled.
Oh, wow.
All right. And I found a thing on Pinterest about how to make a hat out of a paper bag.
That's good.
A big challenge we're having right now is finding advisors for clubs, quite honestly. It's something that we're going to continue to look at as far as compensation. I've put out a data survey to our staff members about how much time they're spending advising clubs. based on what that pay looks like. And so, because that's something that has come up with a few people, you know, it's just not enough to entice them to manage those clubs. And we want to offer all of those awesome opportunities to our kids, but without an advisor, that's hard to do. Okay, so that's a challenge I'm working through right now, and trying to find creative ways to get some of those club things covered as well. Also looking at when those clubs are offered, because we have so many kids who are involved in so many things, and sometimes after school isn't the best time to offer clubs because you've got sports practice or you've got to ride the bus home or all those things. So we're working on, those are some challenges we're working on with clubs, but we're digging into that work. Transportation. Thanks to Jamie for lending me her bike helmet. I won't give headlights. Okay, or give headlights. So, for transportation, we're working with Go Right Way right now to ensure standard language around our safety protocols. Because in the past, they've had different language around how they help deal with things like any evacuation stuff, any emergency help that they're providing to us, or for example, if they show up at school and there is a reason why kids have to stay on the bus and we can't let them in right away, or things like that. Their language has been on one, they have this set of language and we have this set of language. So working on making those standard and bringing them over and helping them to understand why we use the language that we use with our students and why that needs to be consistent. So working on that, I'll be at a driver meeting next week to help their drivers understand why we use the language we do with our students and why that's important that we're all consistent. So, what questions can I answer in any of the three hats?
I have a question. I've gotten some disappointing concerns that the concession stand hasn't been open during some of our indoor events, and just wondering if there was a procedural change with, or who's doing what.
What we've done is open it up to all groups to sign up to be able to do it, and the problem we've run into is certain groups have signed up and then not shown up. So,
They're on the note.
they are on the naughty list, and we're taking note of that, but that was our main concern at the beginning, and we've kind of addressed that. It shouldn't be an issue going into basketball season.
Okay. Good, okay. Any other questions?
How long is the co-curricular handbook gonna be generally?
How long is it, like?
Like, is it a 10-page?
No, right now it's actually a 60-some page document. I think it's dense. Yes, it's dense. You can find it actually on our website. It's linked there. I recommend it for light reading. But it's
a good bedtime story. Yeah, if you can't fall asleep.
It's a lot, so that's why there's a lot of pieces, and there's a lot of inconsistencies within that document, and a lot of places where we have our middle schoolers sign that document, but it doesn't really talk about middle school specifically, and I think it kind of assumes middle schoolers are just short high schoolers, and we know developmentally they're not. So, you know, working to address that piece, as well as working to address the nuances that come with clubs and sports and inconsistencies, like if you're not passing, you can't play, but what about other co-curriculars, like other co-curriculars? Can you participate there, and how does that equal up? And so really working on that consistency piece.
And I would say that was a priority for all of the handbooks this year, that we needed to really put some time into it at the onset of the school year, but we knew this year that we were going to involve all sorts of folks to really make them better, so we have really good products next year going into.
And I didn't want to get into mine too deeply until we had a student handbook, because I really wanted to line up philosophically with that. Otherwise, we're just asking for more inconsistency.
Is there a way you could write it so that things that are verbatim student handbook, like instead of listing listing again what's already in the student handbook and just saying reference.
Reference, yep,
And-
absolutely.
Okay, so I don't know if that helps dwindle down the pages.
It's like teasing out what's WIA driven versus our own clubs, because WIA is the big driver behind El Paso Play, not necessarily our clubs. So we're finding whatever balance it is.
And like
Yeah.
around what code of conduct violations are.
Yeah.
That's WIAA driven. But at the same time, we want that to be consistent with our club people. Like it's so, and making all of those things match up.
It's a lot of work, so
Yes.
thank you for.
I really enjoyed bringing in staff voices, teachers and advisors and coaches at the middle and high school level. They've really had some great perspectives, and I'm looking forward to the same thing with our student athletes and student co-curricular participants as well.
Great conversations.
We need a word for that.
Yeah.
It's
I'll
like
work on it.
athlete instead of.
Maybe I need another hat. Anything else? Oh, sorry.
Is there, I was gonna say, is there a way, for community members to be advisors, if there's like a retired art teacher? that wants to be-
1,000%. If you're out there and you want to advise, call me. Yeah.
It's
Need a
just
big
similar,
sign,
but-
need a
We would do a background check,
Yeah.
you know, the same way that we hire coaches.
There's
you
just
know?
some of these things that I think even with like game time volunteers and like how are we making community
Right, and
connections?
we do have some of our people who help with events, are longstanding community members who we are so thankful for. Our chain crew for our football games, our ticket takers. Pat and Cheryl, we could not have an athletic program, I don't think, without Pat and Cheryl, right?
Absolutely.
And so, those community members who want to get involved in any of that, please reach out, call me anytime, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Rick.
You don't want a hat? They don't ask hard questions when you went through
Okay, the finance report, we're through September, first month of school, survived, everybody got paid.
Yes.
She's gonna say that every time. Get paid.
Year to date, we're kind of through the end of September, kind of normalcy is kind of starting to come back, the students in, food service in, kind of all the normal bills starting to come back in, so it's kind of good to have people back in the building and students back. The big excitement for me is that tomorrow state 8 numbers come out, so I'm super excited. Pins and needles. Nobody else can be, but- Yep, those are the numbers that we can finalize what our tax levy is, kind of after the revenue limit worksheet comes out tomorrow, so we're looking forward to that. You probably saw the budget publication went to the paper with an estimated tax levy amount up from last year, kind of due to our passage of our referendum, so we thank the community for passing that, which helps operate our school and district, which is always a good thing. Other than that, financial reports, kind of budget monitoring, and kind of doing some projects to kind of enhance board monitoring, kind of some expenditure monitoring projects, hoping to have some new graphics and easier to understand tools for the board to kind of make their job of monitoring finances easier, so working on that, along with a project with Michelle on salary comparisons as well. So lots of stuff going on, but the main thing is budget and tax levy tomorrow through the end of November. And then after that, we'll kind of get into next year's budget.
It'll be a party for you.
Yep.
Well, for a visual learner, I would say a pie graph goes a long way. So thank you for putting some of that stuff in. I think that'll be a really nice tool that will, share ongoing. Any questions for Jared?
No, I agree, the graphs are very nice.
And I just shared with a couple board members because I didn't want to have a walking forum on an
Yes.
email string, so. And then I will kind of get that out to the rest of the board after kind of finalizing stuff.
Yep. We can have a tutorial of sorts and,
Yep.
because, he's even made it really user-friendly where we can, there's some drop-down boxes and change and, so that'll be a really nice tool. And consistency, and you can always refer back and look at the previous on things annually, so that's really nice. All right, thanks, Derek.
And see you in a few minutes.
You're great. Yeah, I know.
You could probably just stay there, because there's nothing for 5.1.
Oh, Michelle has to do her report.
Oh, yeah, but you could just be here if you wanted.
I gotta go get my
Okay, well, I'll actually go pretty quickly, because a lot of the things I have on the report, everyone has talked about already. So just a couple of things specifically. Looking at, I guess, celebrations, and part of my priorities progress was safety. We did receive the digital mapping grant for about $10,000, so that is fantastic. So Bill and I met with them today, and we're hoping to get things set up in the next couple weeks for them to come in and get some accurate maps of our buildings. So that will be fantastic. A challenge, one of the challenges that we're facing is, it was great last board meeting to talk about looking at our facility and some of the hours that we're going to be changing and things like that, and doors and all the things. But there's also a challenge in that, because we have a lot of policies that we haven't necessarily followed through on when it comes to community groups using our facility. So it's going to be really important that we talk specifically about the committees that you all are going to talk about tonight, so then we can meet right away as a facilities committee, so we can move some of that forward, because there's lots of conversations that I know Melissa and I want to start having with you as board members and community members to make sure we have some policies in place. Because we want to have a community event where people can come in and learn all those things, so it's not a surprise and we can get some good things in place. So there's that. Also around safety in December, right now we're in the process of getting all of our bids and things for all of the doors, entrances, you name it, all of the things. And then in December, we're hoping to bring that to the board with a list of, here are priorities, here are the things that we are hoping to have funded in order to make our school as safe as possible. So all that hopefully will be coming in December. Scoreboard. So, I know we're on the edge of your seats. Some people have hats, I have a scoreboard update. So, apparently, and our scoreboard isn't that old, I think it's like 3 or 4 years old, but they don't make that model anymore, and we got that scoreboard from, I think they're out of business. There's a lot of things around that, which is unfortunate. So apparently when we thought it was fixed, it was not. So we had to bring someone else in and ordered, so we did find someone to order the parts with the 0 that flashes and is not working, and apparently we're gonna try to get that fixed. But if we can't get it fixed, we have no other options, because there's...
What about the horn? I'm sorry, I thought you could add that to it too.
Is that what, is the horn on the
Yeah,
scoreboard?
it sounds like
too?
somebody's doing the, ooh, got a horn behind it. It's like a little squeeze horn, so I'll try to add that to it.
Well, and what
Sounds
I've
like a bird
heard
went in there
is
and died.
we're running out of options with the scoreboard because they don't make the model anymore, nor do they make the parts, and we might just have to buy a new scoreboard, which is unfortunate because it's not that old.
They had the big any longer than going in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
It could be a job for the kids with little cards, you know, hook the cards up.
Give me a
Right.
triangle and not move, you know, something, anything.
right.
Just to be, it's been worked on and it's been on your agenda and you're working on it. So folks out there who see it,
Yes.
it is a mission.
It just
right?
could be more in plain sight.
Yeah.
Every time anybody goes.
Oh, I know. Right, exactly. And I think the last thing I wanted to highlight too is that, and we actually just met today about it, is really re-energizing that tech council, ACP, just looking at how we can bring some of our community partners together. We have a council that's already formed, but how can we utilize everyone in a more effective and just a way that actually brings them to part of the conversation, get some good stuff. So we've got a plan. So we're gonna go out and look at some districts that are actually doing a really good job of that, have some successful tech councils, learn from them, bring those ideas together, and then hopefully move forward. And Mike is so excited about just getting right in there.
You're trying to get away from him, she wrangled you right back in.
So, any questions? I mean, there's lots of other things, but I know we've talked about that.
Great stuff. Awesome. Thanks for coming. All right, thank Thank you, everybody. Really good stuff.
Barb, would you mind if we could go next? Because these guys they've been here since, I know, I'm sorry. They've got to
Can I do that
get home
midway?
and do work.
Can I hold that the agenda midway and make a new motion?
I think if we vote, yeah.
I don't see why you can't.
I don't think it's a.
Okay. All right, so we'll be adding 4.2 and a half, 5.0. Do I have a motion to move 7.1 to 5.01?
So moved. Second.
5.0-1.
Well, just before 5.1, so it's 5.01. Okay, Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? She's gone. Mike?
Yes.
She checked on me.
Like, raise your hand.
Just the voice.
Oh, okay. Mary Beth, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Got it, yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
All right, I vote yes as well. Okay.
Floor is yours.
Okay, so I brought 3 of my officers here to talk to you about our overnight trips for first semester. My apologies for coming late. I thought the meeting started at 6:30, so I apologize for that dramatic entrance.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So our FFA chapter is alive and kicking. We're rolling this year. We had a meeting last week, and it was in my 27 years of doing FFA meetings, this is the biggest FFA meeting we'd ever had. We were at 54 people, and so we didn't even know what to do with all of them. It was crazy, but it was fantastic. So anybody who says that you're not on the up and up from COVID, they're lying, because we're on the up and up from COVID. So they're here to talk to you a little bit about overnight trips, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask.
I'll start. First off, I'm Melissa. I'm this year's treasurer. I'm going to be talking to you guys about National Convention. We leave next Tuesday through Saturday, and we're taking 10 kids. It's 6 people from our officer team, and then 4 really active members in our chapter. We do a variety of different things. We attend and go to different tours. So this year we'll be touring Fair Oaks Dairy Operation, Carry Foods, Hartley Rowers, which is a poinsettia greenhouse, and Ozark Fisheries, which is a koi fish operation. And then just do kind of other recreational activities, kind of just have fun when we're out there. We're going to go to Dave & Buster's. We're going to do this kind of game show thing. Not really sure what that all entails yet, but I'm sure it'll be a good time. And then we're going to do the World's Toughest Rodeo. And yeah, it's just a good time. It's a good opportunity. We do all these different things, have fun, get to learn about agriculture, all the opportunities and jobs opportunities that FFA offers, and kind of just get to see real world examples and go on tours and do all kinds of things.
Alright, so my name is Amelia. I'm this year's parliamentarian. Unfortunately, I do not have my jacket. So I did not get to go home after school today. I'm along with the National Convention sub. Over there, we do a lot of kind of school-related things. We go to sessions where there will be speakers with microphones, and we'll listen to them talk, and they'll teach us about leadership and about their personal journeys, and it's kind of good for learning. And then we also do workshops, which is like a breakaway of a smaller group, because usually the general sessions are like a lot of people, like, I don't know, thousands? A lot of people. And so we'll do breakaway sessions that are a lot less people, like maybe 100. And you have, 2 or 3 of the like bigger leaders inside of FFA, and they kind of teach you about something. They'll have you do some sort of fun activity, and you get to learn. And then there's also the expo, which has colleges, it has businesses, it has a lot of cool stuff. It has food. They give you free stuff. You get a lot of pens, sunglasses, and it's really good for kids that are planning to go to college, because you can learn about college's ag programs, which is really good for students in FFA, because they love agriculture. Yeah, that's 10 students, and we'll just be missing 1 day this year because it is over fall break. And yeah, for the juniors taking the ACT, we have a plan for them to take it at a different time. which this year is going to be held in Stevens Point. And what it is it's for starting members go to the Connect, so that's usually middle schoolers and freshmen. And it's kind of just to introduce them to FFA and what it is, and, you know, get them in a couple leadership things, but it's not that much. And then IM is for the older members, and it's kind of to get better in their leadership skills. And it's fun. I don't know, they usually have like a little dance after all the workshops. And again, you do a lot of breakouts where it's kind of, you know, 20, 30 kids, and there's one person teaching you something. And a lot of kids get the like chance to have like to go outside of what they usually do because it's kind of away from school. That is 8 students attending, and they'll miss half a day of school.
So I'm Charlie, I'm this year's reporter, and I'm talking about the Halftime Leadership Conference, which is in Stevens Point as well. And that will be happening January 17th to January 18th. And so this conference, we get to select 2 members from the FFA, like from our FFA chapter, and they get to go from across the state of Wisconsin. So two FFA members from every chapter in Wisconsin, and they go to this smaller scale FFA convention or conference, and so it's either 2 officers or it's 2 very active members that will go, and they participate in some smaller scale like workshops, and it's geared with activities that are done mostly in like that chapter. So it has to do things that are like how to post effective things on social media, how to run different programs like Food for America, and then also amplifying your membership recruitment and the national chapter award as well. For this trip, we would only miss 1 day of school, or like one day and a half day of school, and just okay, so just 1 day.
Still debatable, maybe.
And there would only be 2 students attending, as well as Miss Hauser. So, just a song for her.
Oh, and then the last thing that we want to talk about is our officer retreat, which is going to be sometime in January. It's not something that we miss school for. We go out usually to the wilderness in the Dells, the hotel. Not
The actual wilderness.
And we stay at a hotel or something like that, and we get together and we work on planning out kind of what the rest of the year looks like for the FFA. Ultimately, the officers go to that.
It's another way for us to kind of bond, as well as figure out banquet mostly, and figure out like what we've been doing right this year, what we might need to improve, what we can work on, and just kind of setting goals for the rest of the year.
And it's fun.
It's just a good time for the officers to get together, kind of have fun together. I mean, we're a team and we want to continue to get to know each other, have fun, just kind of hang out.
We've done one retreat already this year. We did one in July. And we went to a hotel near Barnabas.
Deer Valley Lodge.
Deer Valley Lodge. And it was good. We had fun. And I think it's really good for bonding as a team.
Awesome.
So are you guys gonna be able to bond together and wheelchair Miss Hauser around all week?
Just what she lets us.
Yeah. We'll see how that's gonna go.
Since you don't have the whole tradition that you kind
Yeah,
of
there's
lost last year.
There's
so-
no way we could do it this year, that would be bad. So, yeah, we're working on that.
Get you one of those motorized chairs.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, I can't do a wheelchair because I would just go in circles, because I can only use
You
one
would.
arm.
You got a lot of kids
You should get a Vespa.
What?
You should get a Vespa.
Oh, there you go, man.
Any questions for the group? Matt's got a question.
I was just curious, because of the 2 of you guys, how many FFA officers are also on the student council?
3.
3, yeah.
There's us two and then Braden.
And you had 54 at your meeting, so like 25% of the high school.
It's middle and high school, so it's 7th, 8th, 9 through 12. So,
And then, as well as like, if they want to bring their friends in, even if they aren't members, just to come introduce them to FFA, that's also welcome. Yes.
they can bring their dogs too.
Any other questions? Dylan?
What is it about FFA then that is so exciting to go to? Like, that's a lot of students that are choosing to go. Not all parts of school have that engagement post-COVID. What is it about FFA?
Well, in my experience, it's the leadership and also just how open it is and where anybody's kind of allowed to join and nobody is turned away and everybody's included. And I think that's a good group to have, especially with just a smaller school. So having a group where kids just kind of go in and there's just a smiling face or happy people, as well as learning different skills that will help them in their life.
Yeah, and I think along with that, especially for our meetings, we usually do some sort of fun game or activity afterwards. For our October one, we did pumpkin carving, so we had pumpkins there for students to carve. And for our September one, we played spoons. And just having like some fun activities kind of what gets people in the door. And then once they're in the door, it's a lot easier to convince them to join and to be involved.
I also think the commitment is really great because you can do as little or as lot as you want, because if you want to go to conferences and hang out and do all these leadership things, you can, or if you just want to come to the meetings and kind of get to know a little bit more about it, you can do that. Like, you can just decide what you want. It's less in sports where like sports can be very demanding at times, where FFA you can kind of lean back for a little while and jump right back in. Like, it's just kind of what you want to do.
I may be biased, but you have a really cool leader. And might be part of it, right?
She is pretty cool.
Pretty graceful too, I guess.
Yeah, she's real graceful. Master stairs.
Well, thank you so much for your continued leadership and support, because it can't be done without you. But I also love hearing fun said so many times, because learning is fun, and there's some really important components of being able to work as a team, and that can, be done having fun too. So have fun on all of your trips, and we can't wait to hear about it. And yeah, thanks again.
I need a motion on that one.
Okay. Any other questions though? No? All right. All right, do I have a motion to approve the FFA overnight trips for 2024-2025?
So moved.
Second.
Right. Hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Just put Mary Beth as a NA. Okay. All right, it's passed. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you. All right, back to 5.1. I kind of chuckle because in making the agenda, Beth and I were really honed in on like, oh, well, the new employees are gonna have to like sit through the admin reports, maybe we should move it up, and then you walk in, it's like, oh, the new people are our admin. It's a new point, isn't it? And so a strikingly different employee meet and greet than we normally had, because I feel like this room has been together for years now. But if you want to stand up and just quickly introduce yourself, it's part of the agenda. Name something fun about yourself, and that can be it.
Favorite movie, it's always Matt's thing, favorite movie.
Okay, favorite movie. Maybe that's worse than.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Sarah
Awesome.
Grant, elementary principal. I don't really have a favorite movie, but something fun that Liz and I both discovered. We both have really big dogs that are about 130 pounds. They're both Newfoundlands, and they're babies.
Okay, what's your dog's name?
Mine is Oakley.
Oakley, okay.
Cammy, right? You got Cammy. They're both black and a little bit white with them, so big gentle giants.
Awesome. Welcome, Sarah.
I'm Melissa, Athletic Activities Transportation,
I don't really have a favorite movie either, but I can rock a school dress up day. That's my
All right, I'm Liz Rhodey. I am the middle school, high school principal. I do have a favorite movie. I love A League of Their Own.
Oh.
And that song at the end, Now and Forever, has been my college roommate song since we were in college. I won't tell you how many years ago that was. So, but yes, so anyway, but that movie, I just really enjoyed that movie.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom was here.
I know.
I wouldn't be able to talk about his favorite movie, but I can tell you he has two awesome kids, and he's an amazing wood shop. He has an amazing woodworking thing, LLC, that he does, and he is phenomenally talented at it. So really cool when we get to get him down with Mr. Hopper, and he gets to go down and kind of work with the students. They're floored for him walking in, just being like, oh yeah, you gotta do this with the blade, here you go, but they're looking at him like, how do you know how to do all that? So, super cool.
Great plug. What was his business?
Oh, sorry. I'll get to the card.
Okay. Awesome. And Michelle, you're technically part of this group.
Right, yeah, Michelle McGrath, District Administrator. Favorite movie, Top Gun, is one of my favorites.
The original.
The original, right. I mean, the latest one wasn't so bad, but.
Well, awesome. Well, we always just like to take that opportunity and welcome our new employees and kind of put a face to the name, because so much of the time we don't get those check-ins. So on an annual basis, we do that, and thank you to all for, in its redundancy, like introducing yourself again. All right, moving on. 5.2, Derek, thank you for sticking around. We'll be up to discuss our budget publication.
And this is just kind of a high-level overview of what went out in the paper. We'll have a much more fun, enhanced meeting at the budget hearing, but this is just kind of giving the board here's a snapshot of what went out. Kind of the first how it starts is here's what our fund balance is, and that's kind of our running, what our surplus is over the entirety of time. So the change in the beginning of the year to the end of the year is kind of what our net gain or loss was for that current given year. So for 23-24, we had a slight net gain, which is good. Looking at 24-25 budget, we always kind of anticipate the budget a balanced budget and kind of strive to achieve that at year end. Kind of one piece is that with budget conversations coming up, our fund balance is sitting at roughly like 40% of total expenditures. That is something legislators are looking at, so that is kind of a point I'm looking at, kind of what can we do to kind of trim that down to a more reasonable, I put that in quotes, number in legislators' minds. So kind of looking at strategies to do that, we're kind of putting that in the board's mind as well. So I'm kind of gonna just skip through all those and say we came in aligned with what kind of our budget was coming into the year. Our budget is aligning with kind of our referendum scenario we passed last November. Kind of, we haven't seen any drastic changes going up or down or swaying away in certain areas. So we're kind of in line with that, which is good, that our plan is coming to fruition on our budget. Our total levy, as you can see, that's what everybody wants to know. How are you gonna hit my tax bill and my pocketbook? Is up this year. Our planned increase was roughly $300,000 in our referendum planning. We're at roughly $443,000. Our mill rate is substantially lower than what we had planned in our referendum planning. So I'm looking at why that is and what caused the increase to property values to say, did we have more property growth in the district, so more tax base to tax, or was it strictly inflation to say, okay, what are kind of our strategies? But we're kind of generally in line with kind of our plan from the referendum. So that's good news that some of our plans came to fruition, and that number will not be the same number you see tomorrow. So I'm just saying that this is all great planning, but numbers change, and DPI doesn't release their numbers until 2015, and that's when I'll have. So my real fun starts tomorrow. hopefully at 8:30. They tell me it's 11, but I think it'll be out earlier, so we're working at that. And is there any questions the board has of this high level?
Is there any predictability to when the municipalities do their assessments and like whether that changes your outlook on, you know, whether it's like, okay, next year a certain municipality is doing a reassessment? To know then not to, you know, as far as predicting and consistency, to me, if the dots don't connect, then how, it's hard to be like, oh, well, obviously the numbers went way up or way down if they're doing some reassessments. You know about it.
Municipalities reassessing doesn't impact us at all. It
Okay.
just impacts which municipality gets the portion of the whole. So our whole doesn't change, it's how they divvy up that whole. So Black Earth has 10%, and then they reassess, and now they have 15. They now have 15% of the tax burden.
But in the overall tax value, it would increase.
So,
Is that a possible source of the mill rate going down?
Yeah.
Because I know that both are.
I wasn't gonna say
As a
anything,
resident of
but-
Black Earth, you know.
but again, reassessment within your municipality doesn't
Right,
mean a
whole
lot,
lot.
because if you're 1% of the value and coming out after you 1% of the value, you have 1% of the tax.
Right.
So,
But in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
it certainly doesn't inflate the whole.
don't
Is the state aided amount going up for us drastically, or has it been pretty steady since 4 years ago, 2 years ago?
It's been, we saw a bump last year in state aid, so it kind of took a little bump up, but a bump up for us means still under 25%, which is substantially low for the statewide. So out of every kind of dollar, 25 cents is coming from the state, 75% is coming from the taxpayers. So it's not like bumping from 21 to 22 or 22 to 23. Really fixes our kind of burden on our taxpayer problem.
And like we were talking before, it's, when I was in high school, it was like reversed. It was back in the 70s.
Right.
So like the lower you got to that big, you know, spectrum, it was like, okay, we were teetering on, you know, some relative lower numbers in terms of what the taxpayers have to punch in, but it just, and enrollment, yeah, declining enrollment doesn't help either, right?
2005 and 2011.
Right.
It went like,
The two things that, yeah.
yep, so then that made the
Yeah.
formula all out of whack.
Mhm.
So when we talk about the funds that we put into Fund 46 for capital expenses, is that visible on that high-level overview of where that increase is? And
Yes. So if we scroll down, it's in this capital projects section. So that capital projects fund. The Fund 46 is included here, but we also have to remember that also was our Fund 49, so our referendum funds. So we had kind of in 22, 23, we were spending down the last of our referendum funds. So that was roughly why that dropped down almost 3.3 million. So that was kind of depleting all the rest of the remaining of the referendum funds. And now kind of that 3 million is kind of our Fund 46 kind of moving forward and showing that in our 24-25 budget, we're anticipating to kind of put in a contribution of roughly 400,000. That's budgeted and kind of planned for, to kind of prepay and kind of plan for years 3 and 4 of our referendum when we kind of are planning to shift some capital expenditures over there out of the general fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Eager to hear.
Yep, me too.
Sleep well.
I won't, but.
All right. Moving on, 5.3, policy, not a lot here. I just wanted to attach the policy, our new committee membership. And really, you know, I brought up to Shayna Dillon some of your concerns regarding, you know, limiting the policy in a more narrow fashion versus putting everything in there for strict guidance. And really, You know, the takeaway is, yes, policy is to help or hinder, and sometimes when you have too much, it hinders. And so when anytime you kind of have a new transition, it's kind of like give it a year and see what maybe needs to be outlined, maybe see what doesn't, and what's helping and hindering. And so I foresee kind of this committee structure and policy to be a transition and a year of trial and error to kind of see what unfolds. But in terms of how we actually do business and procedurally, it doesn't have to be in the policy. So everybody take a look at the executive content there. And like Michelle said, we will be calling upon a committee, although I chuckle because I'm like, is it facility or policy? And if we do both, then we have a quorum, so we probably should just, but we'll figure it out as to where that things best fit, I guess. Any questions on any of that? All right. We will move on to our 4K presentation. Thank you for being so patient. Any cheese? Or I mean, nobody even broke up with the cheese. So thank you. Yeah, and I'll just introduce this real quick. Obviously, this has been a topic on a lot of people's minds for quite some time, and just to reiterate, the kind of decision-making that we want to make is thorough, evidence-based, making sure we're including all the voices and perspectives so that we can have a good dialogue and discussion when we know we're going to make a really big decision. And so we're not making a decision tonight. This is just kind of initiating some good dialogue, but we wanted to make sure we kind of had time to gather all the data. And thank you, Dale, for putting it together, and thank you all for being here.
I don't know if you guys want to turn. I know you probably have it in front of you. Sometimes it's easier. Real quick, thank you, Bart, for that introduction. And as we put this together, you know, I asked some questions and I talked to Barb. I said, you know, really just try to make sure we're having an open conversation about 4K. Here's some things that we see. Try to put some things together. But I want to thank this group here. It was definitely a team effort putting this presentation together. And I asked when we met, I said, well, how do you want to do this? You guys want to present? And so that's why I'm standing here. But I said, you know, at any moment, I said, if the board has questions, you know, they can chime in as well if I misspeak. So they'll be part of it. But if you would, just I'm going to have you each introduce yourselves, and I could introduce you, I guess, but I just want to make sure the board. Becky, we'll start with you. Why don't you do this? Go ahead.
Becky Schatz, early childhood special ed teacher, also doing special ed with 4K and been around since the start. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you know, Becky's been in and out of 4K as well. There's been many years where we've had a 4 section, and she, in a halftime program, so she'd teach EC in the morning, early childhood, and she'd have a 4K section. I don't know how many times she's done that, but we couldn't remember. And so Franny. Go ahead.
I'm Franny, 4K teacher. Age update. Another 4K teacher. And Lisa Steiner, 4K.
Sarah helped as well, and Derek helped with the numbers, so it definitely was a team effort here. You can see our agenda there. We'll just keep rolling here. A little bit of background. As I was doing a little homework and getting ready for this, you can see the program was established here at Wisconsin Heights in 2007-08 was the first school year. The last time I presented in this room on 4K was March 12th, 2007. So I actually found the presentation. That was my order. Anyway, but Angie and Becky were here when we first established it. It was a very different conversation, just getting 4K to come to our district. And that was a process in itself, and we were very excited to get here. So you can see some information there. So, and as I skip through these, I'm not going to read the slides, but if you have a question, just ask, okay? There'll be a time for questions at the end as well. But you can see enrollment, how it works at the top. Just thought I'd provide a little enrollment history. You can see that there, the last 9 years, where we've been. Highlighted the last 3 years, where that's been a full day program prior to 22-23. Obviously, that was a half day program. You can see the numbers, quite a swing. If you think, in looking back on numbers, you can go back years, and yes, I don't think we've ever had under 40, but upper 60s, we've had that. So think about that 4K program, a swing from 20 kids. You know, you go from 40 one year to 60 the next. It's a huge swing. Open enrollment, no open enrollment this school year. 2022, our first year with full day, we had 8 open enrollment kids. 4 of those 8 stayed with us to kindergarten. Last year we had 9 open enrollments. 7 of those kids stayed and went to kindergarten with us. So, which we had predicted we wouldn't get that many, so actually those numbers are pretty good. I know people are curious. What are other school districts doing out there in the state? There is a little link here. You can click on that link, and that lists all the 4K programs in the state. The top 3 really half-day programs and how they look. The DPI divides it out this way. The full day, 2 or 3 days per week. Essentially, that kind of equals a half-day program. So typically how those work is you have a Monday, Wednesday group, and you have a Tuesday, Thursday group, and then you switch off every other Friday. That's why they say 2 or 3 days per week. Typically, that's how that works. Mainly, school districts choose that option, so then they don't have to bus midday. They save on busing costs, and so they go that's one of the main reasons why they do that. And you can see a number of districts, we're not alone, offering a full day 5-day program. Just kind of outline, I'm not going to go through this, but I thought it'd be good for the board to know what do we do in 4K. Here's kind of our focus and our overall, what do we want our kids to learn and what do we focus on. Just really made a list there. Really try to focus on that play-based learning and incorporate everything that we do with play and in our learning. The next few slides Derek helped me with, and the series of the next 4 slides, try to put the numbers together because ask questions, not perfect, but they're pretty close. They're, and that's why, you see up in the top estimated cost overview, and even how to title some of these slides we struggled with. What do we want to call that? Because it's just, but here's some numbers that'll just give us a ballpark as to where we're at with the program. And you can see it outlined there. So this is last year's numbers. Keep in mind anytime that with enrollment, it's always a 3-year average. So it's not student for student, year on year. It's a 3-year average within the program. So you can see the numbers there and how the 0.6 works. But I think you guys all understand that piece. Some expenses, so on the other side, just expenses, so put some numbers there with our staffing. And then Derek and I had a couple of different conversations about just other costs, because people ask, well, what does the program cost? Well, every program costs money. It just does, and if you look at it, you got to kind of group it. Sometimes it's you can pinpoint it to a particular grade level, other times it's kind of part of it. We tried to explain in the middle just what that means or what that looks like. So we divided it, among 7 grades. If you're thinking elementary, you can see spread over 13 grades, that transportation cost there. And that per pupil count at the bottom, that's a number that we pulled right off of WISE data with other expenses, with general costs, administrative maintenance. And I wanted to highlight that because, when you first look at this chart, it looks like, oh my gosh, that program, those are really, I don't know if they're necessarily fixed costs, but they're costs that would be there regardless if it's a full or half-day program. Does that make sense? Any questions about that one? Can we keep rolling? These next 2 slides, these were 2 that I'm not sure how to title them, but budget items, considerations, things to talk about, or things that I know we've mentioned in the past. The transportation piece, right now with the full-day program, they just really rolled, we didn't have to add any bus routes, they roll right into what the buses that are already running. If that was one additional cost we had with the half-day program, is we ran midday routes. And so that was additional cost. I did reach out to our bus company, depending on the situation. Ideal situation, $30,000 is actually probably a little heavy. It's probably more like between $20,000 and $25,000, unless they had to add a completely, because we do some midday routes now with some of our special education kids. So there's drivers available, but if we had to add a completely different route on top of what they currently have in place, then the costs jump quite a bit, and then the numbers are more like 60,000. So when you add that piece, go ahead.
So with that transportation piece on the prior slide, you had 70,000, basically just
Still would have that.
appointed.
Still would have that, because we're still
Yeah.
transporting 4-year-olds in the morning, and at the end of the day, the half day, we still have to get kids home, and then we have to pick up them in the afternoon. So that cost would still be there.
So you would kind of think of it as $100,000 for transportation.
Yep. Makes sense, right? So wanted to point that out. Food service, that was one of the questions that I've heard, is like, oh, and cost more for food service. I actually talked to that food service director. They could roll it in with what their current staffing that they have. Full day actually helps our lunch count. It actually, having full day 4K actually helps our lunch count. As we know, we sell more lunches, our food service does better. So, very supportive of that. And the regulations that we originally thought we had to really worry about when we adopted full day 4K, those have eased, and how we're currently serving our lunch program, perfectly legit, and it's good to go. So she felt really good about that. Staffing, obviously, that's the big one there, kind of just lay it out up there with full day. Currently, we have 3 teachers, 3 EAs, half-day program. Depending on our numbers, whether we had a 3-section or a 4-section, it's either 1.5 or 2 teachers. One of the things that we do miss out on is our EAs. That time while we're busing kids home midday, those EAs are available to help with lunch supervision for the K-5 group. But right now, that group's not available because they're with 4-year-olds. And then system impact, we talked a little bit about this last year. Just the related arts, so our art, music, Phi-Ed, added caseload, for them. We get about 30 minutes a day for 4-year-olds. It's incorporated into our specials rotation. Did have to adjust just to fit the 4-year-olds in our specials rotation. Had to reduce the prep time for our K-5 teachers, and then shorter classes for our K-5 students as well within there. And then hard to measure some of this stuff, but the impact on principals, counselors, office staff, when you got a group of kids, a whole other grade level, they're all day, they're just more things happening, but really hard to measure. But there's an impact. The before and after school, we've talked about this before, but just how our system is set up with our 4-year-olds, particularly early in the year, it takes an army to make sure those littles get to the right spot, because they could be getting picked up, they could be getting on the bus, they could be going to our after-school program, or they could be going to our in-house daycare. So you got one classroom, you may need 4 adults to get all those kids in the right spots, because you basically have to hold their hand and get them right there. It gets better, and it helps when the class sizes are a little smaller to make that happen. But it's always fun to watch the different people that show up and have jobs with the 4-year-olds at the end of the day. And you can stand there and see it. It's pretty cool, actually. Pretty cool. And then just space. One of the things that we found ourselves in that tough spot last year with, our numbers. When our numbers get up there and they're hitting that 60 mark and our numbers are 4K, like, okay, currently, we don't have an empty classroom that would work perfectly for another 4 years. So that's tough. And then just the flexibility within the master schedule, the class sizes, and then open enrollment. We had that discussion last January earlier. Just it does have an impact there. tried to lay this out as best we could. I think as a committee, or we can call ourselves a committee if you want, but as a group, we did spend some time and went through this and talked about the benefits and the challenges, tried to be very open and honest about that. So a lot of benefits to full day 4K, and you can see them there. One of the questions is parental workforce participation. What does that mean? Well, it means our full day, you think of local economy, means that our parents may be available to work. Half-day program, and Yella talked a little bit about this. Yeah, it's a big commitment, half-day program for parents. It is not a half-day program, and I've been told this many times, it's not convenient for parents, a half-day program. They got to have somebody available. But one of the benefits is it does help our workforce, and our TAB committee, which Michelle mentioned earlier, one of the things that our employers always talk about is just getting people to work, to have that. The family impact, not worded well, but I mean this in a good way. Less stress, daycare, less stress on the daycare and the availability to work. That's a positive impact on families typically. And y'all mentioned this as well, just a safe environment. You could use other phrases in there, but we know that if the 4-year-olds are here with us all day, we know what their day looks like. Depending on a half-day program, it's going to be different situations for everyone. Early intervention is huge, does provide opportunity to get more access. Speech and language is a big one, because sometimes it's just there's a time crunch. It's just a half-day program. Full day helps our Act 20, the reading readiness pieces that we have to do. Having them here all day actually helps us fulfill the Act 20 things. And then one of the biggest things is just the equitable access to a 4-year-old kindergarten program. Full day does open the door, and we feel really confident that it provides everyone in our district has access to come to 4-year-old kindergarten if they want to. Sometimes with a half-day program, because of the inconvenience for parents, they can't do it. There's no one there at home so that equal access was really important to the group. We thought that was really important. Some of the challenges you can see there as well. They're little, they're babies when they come in, particularly here in the fall. So yeah, they get tired. The attention span's not always there. Our teachers do a great job with that. Half-day program, the comparisons there. Resource allocation, we wanted to make sure we mentioned that piece, and we're aware of that as well. Just limits our options a bit, number of sections. Hard to add a 4th section when we don't know our numbers for sure until the middle of August. So that does put a limit on it, because do you go out and try to find a teacher? What's that? There's a whole wealth of things we can talk about there. And then it does put a little bit of, it does put stress on the master schedule. It's pretty tight at the elementary level, so where kids are coming and going and different things. And then just the overall staff workload. It did add some things to some of our teachers' plates. I think that it's fair to say. Building-wide, but 4K as well. I mean, they added things to their plate too. Half-day. Just pause here a minute. I hope I'm not reading too much here, guys, but I just, all these things I think are important. But the benefits, obviously, flexibility, open enrollment. We never worried about open enrollment with a half-day program, and that was a worry for us last year. I know that was, it's a big decision for us. In January, we'll have to make that decision this year. Allow some flexibility in the schedule, and our teachers, K-5, they do get more time in specials. And our kids do K-5. They get more time for art, music, flexibility. We talked about that. Did want to say, I spoke with the Wisconsin High School Age program in-house, and yes, they would definitely, if we went back to a half-day program, they would provide a wraparound service, so they would open during the day, serve, in the morning and afternoon. And then we've talked about this before, but potentially the Grove, and I think their daycare that they're going to incorporate there, the first step would be school-age kids, and so really targeting the little bit older kids students, because they have some work to do before they get a full daycare program, especially for the littles. But the restrictions are a little less for school-age kids, so that would be their first step. Be down a little bit. Challenges, they're there as well. Just less learning opportunities. We only have half the time, so that's there. We talked about the environment outside of school, where our kids go on when they're not here in school. And then the family impacts, parent work schedules, parent daycare needs, costs, all those add at home. We did have more kids open enroll out with a half-day program just because of the parent schedule. It's like, oh, I'm on my way, daycare is more convenient, it's just there's no way I get back, and so we did lose some kiddos. Many of them came back to us in kindergarten, but there have been some families just like, no, we can't make that work. In there too, double number of students, so like Angie, you know, many years parent-teacher conferences, she's a busy lady when we had to have it. So she can't get them all in. She had to actually add time, because she just couldn't get it, so, you know, the parent-teacher conferences add, you know, that's just one really simple example. But when you have a group of kids, especially when our numbers were a little bit bigger and have numbers of 18, and some years we had 20 kids, even in a half-day program or bigger, that's a lot of students to build relationships with, and a lot of times they're working really hard with the families, just getting them ready for school. Okay, talked about all those things I think there. Little research, and there's lots of research out there, depends on what research. So here's some of the things that I found significant and worth just mentioning. I think we're all well aware, you know, students that have access to a 4K program, they're ahead of their peers when they start kindergarten. We know that, but we also know some of the initial benefits, particularly on the academic side, may not be long-lasting as they progress through school. And I think the bottom one is really important, and it's, you know, for me it's really powerful, but I'm going to read this one out loud. I apologize for doing so. It's difficult to measure, but it could be argued that providing a full-day early childhood education program may save families money, allow parents to secure more stable employment, which likely benefits the overall development of our youngest learners. What about those homes or that stress? But that was some of the research that hard to measure that. And then again, here in the bottom one, I think is you know, why we're seeing more and more school districts across the country, not just here, but provide opportunities for 4K and expanded opportunities, because it really is pronounced for our low income and our minority children. And those investments in early childhood can make a huge difference for those families. I went quick, I hope quick enough, but I feel like I just been, but open discussion, questions, and please feel free to ask our teachers budget questions, you know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on. Hey, Mary Beth, just one sec.
Yep.
I just want to say that is the intent of this, is not to like get into the heart of I think this, we should have it, we shouldn't have it. It's to very inquisitive state of mind. We're still gathering research, so ask your questions away. And I don't know if you guys have anything prepared to say necessarily to put you on the spot. Okay.
Did I miss anything you want to highlight? I want to make sure that I represent it as well.
I think the other thing I thought of was that even with the full day program, that option for half day is still there if that's what those families prefer. You know what I mean? If that's what they're able to do and they have the ability, that is their choice and they can do that.
In the last 3 years, we've had families that have opted for that.
Yeah.
4 or 5, we have 5 right now?
6.
And half day, this one half day. Good point, yeah.
Okay, Mary Beth, you have a question?
Yes, I do, and this is not one side or the other, it's just a question, and Aniela kind of raised some of this stuff about, you know, the purpose of 4K, they get lots of socialization and they get some beginning academic stuff, but we all obviously did 4K half day for a long time. Are we missing are they getting all they need in a half day? But I assume they were getting everything they needed now, and then we've added a lot of specials to the afternoon. So is that accurate? They got everything they needed for the socialization and academics?
I'm just gonna, I'll speak up. That's a tricky one, Mary Beth, because, do we ever get everything we need? The answer is yes. I think we did a great job with our half-day program. Really proud of the half-day program. And our kids were prepared for kindergarten, coming from that half-day program. Full day does have some other benefits there. The one thing that our 4-year-olds didn't have in a half-day program, not a lot of exposure to other adults in the building. So specials, that really is a nice feature. And Yella talked a little bit about that, but having the opportunity to go to music class, art, phy-ed, library with another teacher, that's one more, piece that our 4-year-olds get that they did not get in half day. So, you can go, anything to add there?
We also have a big buddy program we do in the afternoons with our 5th graders. The 4Kers meet up with the 5th graders and we do some reading with each other and little projects, which didn't happen before.
Was it, when we had our grade level centers, it was hard for the 2nd graders because they're not that far removed. Having our 5th graders in-house, it provides some flexibility there. So with our reading buddies, and they do pair up quite often, as well as our high school kids coming down and spending time in all of our classrooms. Often there's you guys have a
I do think it also allows the opportunity, like, for example, at the end of the day, recess, 4K is with 5K. At recess, they're together in the same space. So it's a good opportunity to learn those upper level skills, that next level skill as well.
Also,
Thank you.
I think they also get a chance, to ease into the lunchroom transition and, the dynamics of the lunchroom. It can get loud in there, and as a brand new kindergartner, not having that experience before can be a little scary, so they're kind of eased into that with us being in there and helping them with lunch in 4K.
When you talked about space and class sizes, and it got iffy, speaking to those with professional experience, is there a magic number in terms of a class size that, I'm sure it's spectrum, of course, but I'm trying to gauge when is it comfortable, not comfortable, absolutely not. Is there a certain range that, through your experience, that you would say?
I would personally say between 16 to 18 would be an ideal class size. Once you get up to 20, it gets more challenging, and any point from 20 on up, you add one child, it feels like you add 5 children.
And a lot of times, you don't always know, you have to get to know your students when they come in.
Of course, and it can vary year to year too.
Yeah,
obviously.
and some of the needs are more profound as you get to know them. So then, I would say 15 to 18 would be my ideal. Not over that is way too many to meet their needs.
And I would say that going into 4K, as you're making class lists, you don't know a lot of those kids. So you don't have the opportunity to be like, this kiddo can't be with this kid because, whatever reason. So your dynamics change so drastically in terms of how many kiddos are in that room. You can have 2 kiddos that are best buddies and worst enemies with 22, and it's just as crazy with 10. So, it's tricky.
Derek, can I put you on the spot quick?
Yep.
For some math? So we talked about OEO in, or open enrollment in. So let's average, let's say if we were to do that, we get 5 students who do 4K open enrollment in, and then they stick with the district through 5th grade. How much more money does the district have at hand in that situation versus a world where those 5 students aren't in the district? Cumulative across the classes too, 5 more every class.
It's for in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, he's that good, just
Yeah.
wait.
So if you have 5 and you're, let's just say the like open enrollment in like per pupil, per 1.0 FTE is $9,000. So it's like 45 grand times 4 years, so that'd be 160, 180, and then you have 0.6 of that, so 45 grand times 0.6, so let's just say 30 grand. So like
So thinking about
210 roughly.
that world, right, where the open enrollment comes in, because is it right to think about financially, there's that $200,000 a year that the district is supporting 4K with because of the 0.6 FTE? Or am I thinking about it wrong?
Probably a little high, I'm just, because of the busing costs.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, not quite that high. But that's a starting point, and then depending on what the busing really cost. To me, that's the hard number, I don't know, right in there.
Okay.
Do you have a dollar amount for the loss in the lunch count?
No, I don't.
Is that a thing? Like, is it substantial?
Come on.
And it's tough to put a dollar amount because you don't know if they're free,
Taking
reduced, or paid.
Yeah, okay.
And that changes the reimbursement rate by kid. And
What percentage of kids eat lunch, hot lunch each day for you guys? Is it the
I have
majority?
6 or 7 kids.
Okay.
I have 8 to 10 usually.
So about half.
I just want to thank you for all this data. I really appreciate the references back to my high school days where we had to cite our references.
I'm assuming Dylan's found all of them.
I'm sure he has.
No, I trust-
It's bedtime, right?
Yeah, right, no, I trust what you said.
But really, you want to, DPI actually does a pretty nice job, and on the reference page, I think I have them in there a couple of different times, but if you want to learn about 4K, DPI actually, there's quite a bit right on the DPI website, the whole history of Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's a long, nationwide, we were one of the first states to initiate kindergarten. So, and actually, one of the first kindergarten classes were here in Wisconsin, so Wisconsin has a proud history of early education, and if you want to learn more, and you're curious, yeah, there's a lot to click on, just right on the DPI website. That's where I would send anyone that wanted to learn more about that.
I don't suspect there's that much data if it is, but is there anything to support that a strong 4K program makes recruitment and retention for the grades immediately after they're better, like they're inheriting kids that are ready to go?
There's evidence early on, kindergarten, first grade, but once they hit second grade, third grade, those kids seem to start to catch up. There's a social, the emotional piece though, tends to stay a little bit longer, so just being better balanced. There's some conflicting data there depending on, different subgroups. But on the academic side and just school readiness side, definitely see a difference in kindergarten and first grade, those early primary grades, but, after that, it does balance out a bit.
As a former kindergarten teacher who moved down to 4K, I could definitely tell the difference of the kids in my kindergarten class that came to 4K versus the kids that didn't go to 4K.
It's kind of hidden on there. I think the shared screen, you couldn't see it on the slide, but one of the things that we talked about as a group with the half-day program, we still get a few, but we always had between 3 and 6 kids that did not attend our half-day program, but would show up on day 1 of kindergarten. Didn't have an opportunity to go to 4K because the half-day didn't work. And then, so the peers had a full year experience. That number's decreased a little bit. We have, it's not, typically, I think, I want to say confidently, 4 or 5 kids would show up in kindergarten that didn't have a 4K experience. And pretty new data, but we're getting 1 or 2 of those that are full day program.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Sure.
Okay. Are you noticing as, Angie, maybe you can speak most to this, but as going from half day to full day, are you finding and identifying more kids who are in need of extra help, like speech or other interventions, or perhaps on the autism spectrum? Like, do do you feel like you are still identifying them and in half day the same as you are in full day? Or are they able to get enough help with between the two different times? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Okay, sorry.
That's a hard one to put.
It is, it really is.
I just wondered if you had kind
I'm
of a general sense.
trying to think back to like my last year of,
Okay.
actually, I'm gonna have to go back pre-COVID to thinking about that too.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I don't think so. I don't think there's a difference between the half-day and the full day versus the needs of the kids.
And I'm gonna chime in and just say, there could be. Because
There
they're
could,
here
yes.
longer, you're gonna see them in different environments, you're gonna see them with different adults, you're gonna see them in different transitions, because even a half day, you're more within that same classroom all the time. Now they're transitioning, how do they have that confidence, their gross motor you're gonna see in gym that you maybe didn't see before. They're talking more because they're here longer, you know what I mean? So you're gonna see more opportunities. Is it increasing how many we're finding? Not necessarily, but it does give a better opportunity because you're seeing them in a bigger picture, if that makes sense.
And I would just say the needs across the board are obviously increasing, and especially I know our speech language pathologists see a lot of concerns in that area, which does give them more time to give that direct support and incidental support for kids with disabilities who may or may not be identified at some point.
Really quick, just, you mentioned that there's a reduction from 60 minutes to 50 minutes, and that's per day, and over the course of the year, that's 30 hours. So you guys are losing 30 hours, like, is that all of the elementary teachers, just the 4K teachers? Who's losing that 30 hours a year, or gaining the 30 hours of work?
It's really the K-5 staff.
The K-5 staff?
K-5
Okay. And the only reason it's like, because if we're like, that to me is problematic, not, you know, just because it's like, how we compensate. Because if you're losing time, you need to be getting paid for it. And I would be having a real hard time with just, I mean, not saying I would yes or no, but it's like, I just want to make sure that you're getting adequate compensation for what you're doing.
And then on the opposite side of that, that's 30 hours that the kids are missing or taken away from those related arts, special activities as well. Music, PE, art, library.
So kind of going off of what you're talking about, could you take it a step further and talk about, for students, what they're losing K through 5 if we have a really big 4K? Because I understand that.
How big it is.
So could you take it that farther? Because I understand the staff stress as much as I, a not teacher, can understand it, but I'm not. Could you just go into how the students in K through 5 might be experiencing less because of it?
Talk through, I think you kind of answered it,
Yeah.
but maybe say
So
it again.
currently, right now, when they go to, we call it specials or your electives, right? So right now, it's a 4-day rotation between music, PE, art, and library media specialists. So they split 25 minutes with PE, and then they do 25 minutes with music. But also think of your transition time too. They have to line up, take their shoes off, walk to music, switch, and then in art, they're in there for 50 minutes, and then in the library, they're in there for 50 minutes. So that's a big impact. So instead of, it used to be an hour, so they could have a solid half hour instead of 25 minutes in both music and PE, or a full hour in library and art.
Or a full hour of prep versus a 50-minute prep.
And that as
That
well.
teacher.
Yep.
So the hidden, hard to measure, but the hidden piece in there is it's that much time less to be able to collaborate with the grade level teams. So, you know, our teachers do a great job, so I don't know if there's any direct impact, but there's realistically some impact, just the availability, just the planning even for the math and the reading and all the other things that are on elementary teachers' plates, because they're overflowing with the duties. So there's some impact there, but hard to measure. And academically, you know, we see our numbers, we talked about data. There's no data that would indicate it's impacted us on paper.
And I would say too, when kids go to music or PE, because it is 25 minutes, and thinking of those littles, it takes them a long time to get from point A to point B, and then to sit down, start your lesson. By the time you get your lesson going, it's already time to pack up and go. I was in
They're not
a
able to do as much.
yeah, I was in a kindergarten music lesson, and the next thing I know, it was time for them to line up, and I'm like, I felt like we just got in here. So that's just, you would think 5 minutes in that day, but that's a lot that they're missing. And that would be K to 5th grade students.
When you gave the per pupil cost of $54.71, that's of a 4K student,
That's
or that's of Wisconsin Heights School District?
Wisconsin Heights, that's district-wide, kind of the administrative costs apportioned over everybody.
Could you somehow figure out what the per pupil cost of a 4K full day kit is?
So that's,
Differently, like with the .6, like somehow configure what you're losing, because you're not getting the full reimbursement.
I don't think that becomes comparable then.
Okay.
Because this was kind of taken right off Wise Dash on the per pupil
Okay.
report, and it's saying, here's our district-wide expenditures,
Yeah.
and here's kind of the per pupil amount.
Yeah.
So I don't want to deviate too far and kind of start making up my own numbers when
Yeah.
I can't compare them to anything else.
And, but in that way, it's really, I don't want to say it's not relevant, but if there's nothing to compare as to the specific programming numbers, it might not
But
be usable.
I would say it's an administrative cost no matter what grade level it is, so you have to incorporate it into your calculation.
Yes, okay.
I have one more contained question. I think it's contained at least. So the challenges you talk about of the students losing time, of the staff losing time, are these challenges that exist because there's 4K all day, or are these challenges that exist because of the staff numbers that we have?
It's because if you had half-day 4K, those kids don't do a full elective switch with specials. So it's because they're here all day, they're getting thrown into the mix of our specials mix.
So it's a
half-day
4K
rotation.
It's a half hour of my master schedule that I have to plan for my elective classes. So out of my whole day, a half hour now has to be reserved for my 4K related arts.
Which means you have to pull obviously from
The other.
the rest of the schedule and the rest of the kids to make up for that 30-minute chunk that you're gonna allocate.
Where that becomes really tricky is if we really needed to add a fourth section. Because now we gotta fit that fourth section in the rotation somewhere. I don't know how we do that.
Well, and as I understand, we don't have a classroom, a fourth classroom.
No, I mean, we'd be
Correct.
creative and you make it.
I mean,
we'd make it happen.
Becky's like, no, you do not.
Don't think about coming in my section, there's a whole other group that somehow you have to fit in that rotation that's really tight. And so that's some of the hesitation when our numbers were getting bigger. It's like, when you make that decision, because it's really, it has, it's not just the 4K, it impacts everybody. So it's really, yeah, hard conversations and just,
Picture
I
the
will
monkey
say-
game where you hang the monkeys on the sides and the one tips.
I will say in the position that I've been in where I'm doing early childhood one half and 4K and the other half, makes it very tricky. It makes it very tricky to service those special ed students because now I'm the gen ed teacher who can't get into the 4K to service the 4K spec ed students because I have early childhood in the morning and it's a balancing act and it's not easy. And it really does take away from, so that half-day piece could be a factor to that.
I would love, before we end, to maybe just hear some last thoughts of our professional gurus, because we don't get the opportunity to tap into you often, and I think for me, you know, it's a no-brainer when you look at the pros and the positives of full day, because that's why we initiated, that's what we went in thinking we would accomplish, and that's why we used grant money. But of course, when you're doing a new adoption, you don't know the challenges and cons that come with it until you're living it. And so I think obviously then some of the cons that have been born out of that is because we're living through it. And sometimes those aren't measurable. And so I think your your points of view, especially when you're talking about staff fatigue. And, you know, we prioritize retention and our staff and making sure we're having those conversations. And so because it's not a measurable component to this, I think it's just important that you have the opportunity to share what exactly that tax and toll and stress feels like, because for us, again, we can't read it on a data sheet. So if you feel comfortable, you don't have to, but I think it's just an important piece to point out that it's easy for us to snap our fingers and make a decision, but when it pushes the boundaries on our staff, I just think it's an extra point that we should hear.
Well, I've taught, let's see, this is my 26th year teaching 4K, and my first 23 years of teaching 4K, I taught numerous districts with a part-time, half day, morning and then I did morning and then a little break and then an afternoon. And I came here to this district because it was a full day program. I feel strongly that a full day program, you have more time to really focus on more social emotional. Students that need services, you have the afternoon to provide those services if there's not enough time in the morning. It's really important for students to have specials so that they are comfortable with coming to kindergarten, being in an environment, following routines, transitions, and just they learn through their play. They learn so much. If you've looked at our data from last year, from the fall to the spring, many of them started with, they didn't know any letters in their name, and at the end of the year, a good percentage of our kids were they knew 20 out of 26 capital letters. Many of them have never held a pencil. We teach them how to really do all those basic skills in 4K, and the afternoon just gives us more time to really focus in on those important skills. So I have loved teaching here due to the full day program.
Until you have 20 kids in your class.
Well, last year was, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it was very challenging. I had children of 4 with IEPs as well as students that, as the longer they were there, I observed and realized that there were other, needs that I needed to focus on. So 21 was way too many to meet all their needs. But
And I
this
think
year,
that's kind of the point is, right, and like in theory, I agree with all of that, but when you're starting to talk about big class sizes and having to push the boundary, it almost negates then, oh, this glamorous life that I signed up for.
yeah, 15 is great right now. But that's okay, yeah.
Noted.
Living the dream. And I've lived both lives in the district. And I was hesitant to go to a full day program because like, oh, I have a rest time. It's the least of my worries.
Yeah.
Really. And I can speak. I enjoy parent-teacher conferences so much more. Than I'm doing. There's joy in this. But, like I said, I was hesitant. After the first couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, this is so nice because we have more time to get to things. I don't have to feel like I'm rushed. If I don't finish something in the morning, I have additional time in the afternoon. I can pull small groups in the afternoon. So the benefits far outweigh how worried I was about it.
And we've been able to spend more time as a team, working with each other on our PLC more. We just have that more time.
I mean, they said it all. As a parent of the district as well, my older child was not able to come to the district for 4K because I couldn't. I worked in Madison, so she came with me. She did come obviously in kindergarten and has been here throughout, but I just think that that's a huge thing for parents, and I'm grateful now that we have the full day program. And yes, we had 20, 21 kids last year, but loved every single one of them, love all my kids this
You're
year.
one of those crazy.
I worked with kids my whole life, so I really appreciate having the full day. At the end of the day, in my classroom, we have a afternoon message, and the kids get so excited about telling me what we did that day, and then we write a message on the board, and sometimes I don't feel like we would have that time necessarily in a half-day program, because we would have to get everything in, and everything has a moment, and then off they go. So we really get to bond with them and get to know them.
I will say that the first year was interesting.
It's a work in progress.
Whether it was the full day 4K program or whether it was the new building or what, whatever it was. We talked about, the lunch expectations that we thought we had to be under, which were almost scrutinized to some degree, like, we have to do what? And how does that look? And what does it look like? How do we have to rearrange our schedule, for the day, because now they're here all day and now we're being told we need a 60-minute playtime or we need this or that, how do you fit that in if you have a recess and a specials? And I think all those little things that were big problems at the beginning are no longer those big problems. We've tweaked through them, we've figured them out, we've kind of gone through that. Things flow better. I think you have more teachable moments when they're here full days. You can stop in the middle of nothing and be like, did you hear that, blah, 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 and you wouldn't have all that time to do that, with a half-day program. So, and I have heard positive remarks from families who have been able to have employment, because daycare was an issue, and that was one of the main reasons we looked at the full-day program in the beginning, is that there were a lot of these in-home daycares that were no longer doing it. Their kids were older and, going back in the work field or whatever, and that's positive things have come from that.
Awesome, well, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for your service to our community and children too. Every opportunity I get, thank you. Any other questions while group is here? Okay, thank you again so much for everything. We are continuing to chat and look at things. Certainly we're gonna take, I think, some time to debrief. And if you have any other questions that came up from this conversation, to email Dale, and we can regroup, and we'll regroup at another time to bring this back on the agenda. Okay? Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being patient. You don't want to stay for the field trip conversation?
I'm gonna bait this.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Neighbor.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Dale. 8.1, we have on the agenda a possible action to approve some changes to our field trip policy and procedure. And, this really, I guess, stemmed just from certain situations that I think have been identified as we just need more in-depth policy and detail outlining some of our expanded field trips. And I don't necessarily think, like the FFA field trips that the kids were talking about, where they're missing a half day of school or 1 day of school, really fit this narrative, if I'm understanding it correctly. This is really geared towards our international travelers, or those, taking a week off, or an extended trip nationally, yeah. And just highlighting the need for specifics and the world we live in. Parents, have the right to details, and having a policy outlining just what's expected of our advisors is an important thing, and our policy really needed some updating. And so, did we need a first read for this? No, because it's a change. We talked just internally. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, as it's not in the correct. It's not. Yeah. So, questions? It's attached.
All the work to it.
And it's pretty complimentary of what some other districts are doing, so we did reinvent the wheel here. It was more or less echoing some of the standards pretty much outlined by most districts.
Advisors for the trips that plan it, they get a stipend for that, correct?
I think it depends on the trip, actually.
I'm a little concerned about extending the planning period from like 4/2 months, whichever one was actually in effect, to a year. From that, disincentivizing folks to plan it and to go the extra mile to make sure the field trip happens. I don't disagree with the need for the accountability and the details for like an international trip, but if we're gonna ask people to do that much more work for it, I wouldn't want that to come without an acknowledgement that we're taking more hours out of their day for something that they might not necessarily need to do.
And to be honest, this is not gonna take necessarily any more time. I mean, ultimately, if you're planning an international trip or even a trip to Yosemite or wherever it might be, you'll know 12 months in advance that you need, hey, here's the dates, here's where we're headed. You know some of the initial details, and that's what, and the initial details are getting approved to the building level principal. And those are just like, hey, we're planning this trip, we wanna just have the yes to start planning it, to be honest, to get the finer details. What we're most concerned about is those last details. Like, here are all of the real specifics. So it's not gonna be any more time, and I guess, is Liz here, she leave, but, in general, and Melissa, you might be able to speak to this too, but I don't think it's gonna take any more time for the advisor to be able to say, hey, here's what we're gonna be doing a year in advance. If you're taking one of the extended, what qualifies an extended field trip?
It's the same planning as was required before, but there's just more places where you're checking in with that building level principal and with you all as a board, and spreading that out a little bit so it's not all coming when it's too late to make any changes. So
And
it's
really,
the same requirements, just, right.
Yeah, and I don't think that's uncommon for even help, because with fundraising and the way kids do, I mean, I think it's pre-planned even a year ahead, just how they are now, but, again, as far as the consistent communication and what is outlined in detail hasn't always been consistent. And to Michelle's point, I mean, again, if you're taking our kids anywhere nationally, internationally for an extended period of time, it's not out of line to have been thinking about potentially where you're going, having some of that stuff outlined, and then obviously 2 months before having a very detailed, strict outline of what that is. So I think, yeah, it's not to deter or to be some heavy policy hindering opportunity. This is more to help our parents and, those that may have somebody accompanying in the field trip to feel safe and secure that all the details and everything has been very transparent and met prior to the field trip happening. And so that 12-month benchmark is really, right, to have a check-in with the advisor and the principal, to have a good dialogue.
Yeah, because I think this is just like a layout, so this is basically just something that's just, it's just a document that's saying, this is all the information, here you go. Like, this is just, yeah.
And really, the gatekeeper at 12 months is Liz. And so if she'll be like, well, before I go to the board, maybe we should do this, how we do this.
Yeah,
We
so
aren't
this
the
is just
one
basically saying, this
coming.
is the information that you need to provide at this point in time during this field trip planning. This is the stuff you need to provide to us, is basically all it's saying.
And it's noting it's a draft, so that's
Yeah.
not to say, right, something's gonna change from 12 months to 2 months. But, just to get the conversation flowing and have our admin a part of that conversation with the advisor, an important thing just to have outlined in policy for consistency. And we're hoping somebody just signs up to take the kids to Yosemite. But I do think that's that's something to talk about and look into when we're already talking about stipends for advisors in general, is what exactly are those stipends, when do they apply, for what? If you have another teacher accompanying as a chaperone, is that for the, what, because because I agree with you.
Yeah, because, I mean, usually the stipend is kind of considered as your free, like your free paid trip, so to speak, with them. But I think above and beyond is like now they're not on 8 hours a day, they're on 24 hours a day. So it kind of changes, it does change the dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree, it's a good point.
Well, my mindset is I don't think about trips more than 3 months out. So maybe that's why you want me to think a year ahead of time?
Well, wait till you have children.
Right. Exactly what I want to do a year from
Matt helped write the policy, no?
Okay. I will say that there are a couple other field trip things that you'll see on a future agenda that we're gonna be talking about, changing some policies around field trips, but that's not for today, but just know that we're always looking into these things, so.
All right, so any further questions on any of the phrasing, wording, policy? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the changes to policy 2340.01, procedures for field trips?
So moved.
Second. Into place.
Yeah. Hearing none. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Give up.
What do you think?
Oh, she's,
It just takes 2 times.
Mary Beth?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Would you like to vote yes on adopting the new field trip policy?
yes, I am voting yes.
Okay, she's a yes.
Double yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right. Do I have a motion to approve 9.1 and 9.2?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you to the Wisconsin River Sportsman Club for making their donation to the Vanguard Racing Team, and also a donation for the communication board on the playground, which is awesome. I need to make sure to check that out. Yes. Woo. Any other? Thank you for the donations. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Mary Beth?
Yeah, I'm coming, yes.
Mike?
Yes.
You got it, Mike? Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie? Yes. I vote yes as well. Do I have a motion to approve 10.1 and 10.2?
So moved.
Could I ask about the 10.2?
Yes.
How's
Would you
that?
like to second it before?
Second.
Okay.
How is that structured, like, for the student?
So,
Liz, know more about that?
Kelly.
Oh, Kelly.
I
Oh, great.
will.
Okay, hey.
So it's one of our students who's working on some vocational skills, and he comes over during part of his day, and he's really focusing on some specific tasks, such as washing the dishes and helping out. He's loving it, getting paid, and it's a great leadership role for him, and we have been able, because he's working on those vocational skills, to set aside more time in his day for him.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Making some money on the side, too.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Even better. So cool. And also welcome Samantha Bollock as our middle school volleyball coach. Thanks for doing that. Any other question?
She's coaching just about every sport.
I know,
Yeah.
I love it. Vanguard, you're just
Yeah.
getting yourself in there.
She'll be in that Vanguard suit before we know it.
Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yeah,
All right, Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Future meeting dates. Our next scheduled meeting is our annual meeting beginning at 6 p.m. And our regular meeting will follow at 6:30. And then we are just gonna make a note to keep an eye out for that second meeting in December. We always try to not have it right before Christmas, and so kind of monitor the need and whether we need to, the plan B is if we need to have a second meeting, to have one the 16th, I believe it is, that middle Monday in between the 9th and the 23rd, just depending on what approvals and action items are needed, so just to put that on your radar. Otherwise, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
You wait for that one. Second.
Hearing none.
Yes.
Isaiah? Mary Beth?
yeah.
Thanks for coming, Mary Beth.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thanks, everyone. That was a long one.